So welcome everybody, welcome Consciousness Explorers. I'm Laura Massey from the Earth Nouveau Team, and we're here today and we want to look at what is in a Consciousness Explorer's toolbox. What techniques, what methods have we got as Consciousness Explorers to start accessing the unseen world, and particularly in a safe and protective way. And I thought I'd just kick this off with an invocation, my invocation to Consciousness Explorers. So sit back and relax and just settle in to these energies of this invocation. I take my turn at the wheel of the Exploring Consciousness bus in full knowingness that we are each our own authentic light being with an inbuilt mission to evolve, learn and uncover who we truly are. I acknowledge that this is not a bus ride for everyone this lifetime. Some might just want to sit this one out. There is no judgment in this. I find joy and inspiration that we are more than we've been taught we are. Layers of conditioning and projection from the system, unaware parents and society have limited the ways we see and think about ourselves. Our perceptions of ourselves are based on the narrow dogmas and the relentless, dull, uninspired, droning, self-esteem lowering rhetoric of the global media machine, that we are somehow continually inadequate and powerless. This warped and misleading narrative has been designed to keep us from our true selves and mask our natural potency. To those consciousness explorers who see beyond this, let's make it irrelevant to our journey. Let's outcreate the limiting life choices that stifle the very essence of who we are. We are all free-willed, co-creating sovereign beings of choice. This is the baseline for exploring consciousness. Recognizing the many unseen worlds and realms are layered over our reality. Recognizing we are free enough to explore these in any way we choose that does no harm to any sentient kind and does not tread on anyone's journey. So let's leave the rusty, broken down buses of an old service on the scrap heap of mediocrity. We've long outgrown the need for a self-serving system that makes choices for us in our unawareness. Its passengers are travel sick with its aggressive driving. Its outdated mode of transport has too many miles on the clock. It has no ability to change gear. The engine's whining and the batteries are flat. How long are we going to sit waiting for the so-called smartest guys in the room to decide our travel plans and the price of the tickets? The time has come for a new fleet of Consciousness Explorer buses where heart-spaced awareness, self-sovereignty and courage is your ticket, a ride that will carry us to the stars and beyond. So we say these words to the past, present and future of all that there is. We will not bury our head in the sand or blindly fall into the trap that love and light alone will make us great again. Consciousness Explorers know that beyond love and light is the inner work, the attention to and healing of inner traumas, the self-healing of triggers. Nor do we jump onto every conspiracy bandwagon or system-infiltrated and co-opted protest movement that diverts and distracts us from our own wonderful journey of discovery. We make a conscious choice to expand our awareness of all there is, was and will be. Often there will be more questions than answers, and we accept that great mystery will never be solved, yet we find joy in the process. Consciousness Explorers, let's find the beauty and delight of the journey itself, an endless quest to discover more forms and colours of light, coupled with the exquisiteness of self-discovery, self-healing and self-knowledge. We recognise the bus ride of change can be bumpy. It is sometimes an uphill struggle with a smoking engine, and at other times a smooth downhill coast in high gear, a weave, a drift across all sweeping bends, in all dimensions, time streams, galaxies and universes, a never-ending bus tour that is fueled by belief, an unlimited point of view, sacred neutrality, sovereignty and emanating joy, finding new dream streams and exploring those created by our ancestors who long ago filled in the potholes and tore down the stop signs so that we can speed unchallenged through new eras of light, chasing rainbows and carrying messages of peace. And as our galactic bus happily chugs on, the sun behind us is setting on an old way of doing things, leaving behind the inharmonious and damaging ways of the past. A new dawn holds its breath, softly waiting for more to jump on and ask for new roadmaps, new routes, new journeys, new destinations, new ways of living in harmony with the earth, a more comfortable and fun ride. Meanwhile, the system tries to put out the old bus routes back into service with tired old buses, disguised with new livery, as it attempts to maintain the dying status quo. And still the new dawn waits to see if we will use our free will choices to make ourselves great again. So all aboard, consciousness explorers, destination unknown, but the views will be breathtaking, the scenery unrivaled, a never-ending journey of discovery where finally you get to choose your role in the ride of your life. Aho.
Aho.
Ow.
Oh.
Oh,
Oh,
Aho, aho, aho.
let's get
Just
on that
to-
bus.
Sorry?
Let's get on that bus.
Yes, yes, that's what I want to inspire people to do. So that's just to whet your appetite, really, and to have a look at how we as consciousness explorers can try and get people interested and involved in expanding their own consciousness, expanding their own awareness. And what are the ways we do this? And it would be great if people could share their experiences of how they do it. I'll just give a brief example. One of my first forays into the unseen world was really through sungazing. And I'll just say right now, everything I've learnt about this, I learnt through Andrew Bartsis, the galactic historian, who's kindly come in today to be with us. So I might repeat a lot of the things that you will hear on his videos. He's done lots and lots of videos. So I'm just repeating what I have learnt from him, and I know it works. So in my experience, for example, sungazing, I would go out and close my eyes in the sun, never open, and I would imagine a pillar of light coming down my spine into the base of my spine, forming a big red ball at the base of my spine. And after a while of doing that, I started to have visions, very clear visions within. I was just seeing things and going to different places, experiencing different things, and eventually the colour came. The more I did this, the more colour my visions came in, and it also enhanced my dream world. So that's a practice I still maintain now. It's a practice I tell my clients to do. And I know some people talk about sungazing with your eyes open at I think the last 10 minutes of sunset, you said, Andrew, was the time that's the only safe time to do it, really. And that possibly works as well. So that's just one experience I've had out of many that has expanded my forays into the unseen world. So I open it up to you guys to share so we can all get maybe some different techniques to expand our own self-awareness.
can I chime in, Laura?
Yeah, of course you can, Matty.
Can you hear me okay? I haven't got my microphone.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, cool. So for me, it's the idea of creating a sacred space, creating a safe space. And that can be external in the physical world and also the unseen. And I myself, most of my teachings, well, all of them come from Andrew, really. But just the way that over the course of time, things develop and change. And visualization for me is one of the key ways that I was able to do the healing energy, able to protect myself. And it started just simple visualizations where I couldn't even feel anything. And then after a while, I could actually get the physical sensations and feel the energy flowing. And it just developed. And Andrew's teachings about the fetus in the womb and the projection within the heart the pericardium, extending to Earth Mother and any other kind of celestial connections, holding that space, the 7 directions, just the visualizations of those alone create this immense sacred safe space. And you know, you develop trust in that space. So for me, visualization through the creation of sacred space, if that makes sense, that's the one thing that's really held it all together for me.
Beautiful.
I hope that makes sense to everyone.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Visualization is not fantasy world.
No.
And a lot of people make that mistake. Oh, I'm fantasizing visualization. And when you get over that journey, just like you watch a television show, you go through the suspension of disbelief, meaning if a guy falls off a building and gets up, you know, it's not really going to happen. The same thing goes for your own visualization journey. Your only limitation is your disbelief yourself.
Faith.
Well, there's a step before faith, which is trust.
Mm.
And the fine line between trust and faith ultimately is like a teeter-totter. It turns to one side. Faith goes really high, we lose our faith. Faith goes really high, we lose our faith. Until such a time that trust and faith is without, there doesn't even need to be a question because it's validated itself over and over and over again.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
And I think, Matty, you brought up a very important point there with the creating of sacred space. Because when we're going to do these journeys into the unseen world, I think one of the biggest things I learned right at the beginning is what Andrew termed spiritual hygiene. So it's creating a form of spiritual cleanliness, so you know that you will be attracting the right energies. So when I was very young, I had an auntie, and my grandma used to delve with a Ouija board, and I was participant in that on many times. And it wasn't until later that I learned through Andrew about that was not a good thing to do, because you don't know what you're attracting with something like that. And so there's far better ways of accessing the unseen world to get the experiences that we want, and going beyond the astral worlds as well. And part of that is doing the spiritual hygiene and doing the sacred ceremony to create that sacred space. So you are protected from the many nefarious entities that are out there, just like they're on this world, they're out there too. So I mean, I understand, I know the Earth Nouveau team practice spiritual hygiene, Matty does. Do others out there practice spiritual hygiene? And if you do, what forms do you use? Anyone want to come in on that?
Yeah. Am I on?
Andrea?
Yes, you are.
Julie?
Hello.
Hello.
So
Did anyone want to comment on the spiritual hygiene?
Can I just say something before we go into the spiritual hygiene?
Yes.
I just want to add something to what you've just been discussing, because for me it was quite an eye-opening when I started doing the remote viewing and the journeying exercises. It was almost like I had to take the myth out of the mystical. It was like I was expecting it to be much more mystical as such, like, you know, once I get onto my journey, all of a sudden everything is going to appear magically, you know, mystically. And then over time, I actually realized that I was creating it. I was creating an environment for that to happen by using my imagination, and actually realizing that the infinite is created through my imagination to kick it off with. It's almost like we're creating an environment for everything else out there to start coming towards us once we have started creating that environment. And that's actually happening through practice. Yes, spiritual hygiene and all of that, but it's really practice. And I just want to say for all of you, I mean, most of you are already doing it, but I get to talk to people who have never done it. I just say, you know what, you're doing this on a daily basis. You are on a journey in this reality. And what you do, you use your body, you use your DNA instrument, you use your physical, you use your blood, you use your mirror, all of that, but you're doing it in unconsciousness. And when you start spiritually journeying, when you start journeying, you just have to actually bring all of that into your awareness and almost like start learning to use it. What you're doing automatically already. So we're all masters in journeying, and that type of journeying that we started to learn was bringing it into our awareness and actually using our DNA technology to do that, to prepare an environment where everything else then can come in.
I'd love to respond to that, if I may.
Please do.
Because, you know, that's the beauty of it, the repetition of your journey. And you can make it work for yourself as well, because when we attain these kind of, these other perceptions, it just comes, you know, like you climatize to it very, very quickly. It becomes normal life. So it's a question of practicality. What's practical for you? You have to make sure the information you're getting is good. And you just have to make sure that you've got all of your boxes ticked. And over the process of a continuous ceremonial practice, I mean, Andrew, last time I got to speak to Andrew, he advised me to start brewing sacred brew. And I can't believe how I've lived without it, you know, because now each time I go to do the course again, then I put it all into the brew. So in the process of making the brew, I go through many ceremonies, and all of the objects that I have that I use to create my sacred space are only sacred because of the intention I've given them and the amount of ceremony that they've had. So the ongoing process is what builds that. And you know, the amount of prayers you can get into things over a year, 2 years is quite phenomenal, quite phenomenal.
How many sacred brews have you made?
I've done 2, Andrew. The first one I messed up. I've done 3. First one didn't go right. The second one I used to completely protect the whole house. And then the third one I did because I did the course again, the 6-week course. And I said, well, if I'm going to do the 6-week course again, I may as well put it into the brew as well, you know? So I've got like a fortress, but I actually have one bottle that's my own that I take with me absolutely everywhere I go, you know, and it's got all of my prayer, all my ceremony, all it's with me when I dream, and it's actually turned like a pearlescent color. It looks very, very different to the rest of the brews that were brewed at the same time, you know? So you can literally see the amount of energy that's being stored in them. And it's a phenomenal practice. It's amazing. Yeah.
Pure spiritual alchemy right there.
Yes, absolutely.
Your own essence of prayers.
Absolutely. And that again, like Martina was saying, can only come from a continuous process, from an ongoing ceremonial process. Yeah, absolutely.
It's a practice in action.
Useful.
Yep.
Can I just ask you a question, Andrew? I've been pondering. Is there any time that, say, something like a glass of wine, if you've done revocations and prayers over it, or any form of alcohol like that, can you ever use it as a portal to access the unseen, or is that really a no-no? I mean, I understand, you know, not as a sacred fire. I don't drink much anyway.
So this is my sacred whiskey cup. Ha ha ha. And I recently, you could use alcohol at any time, and people have been using it since the dawn of alcohol. They call it spirits for a reason.
Yeah.
What you put into it, and when you choose to use it out of choice, to bring the essence of the spirit into your spirit. Otherwise, it's just raw. Like when you go to a bar and you see 100 bottles on the wall, there's no spiritual hygiene in any of those bottles. They all came from a different place. All have a different ancestral value to it. Plus all the individual people who are looking at it and giving energy into it, that's pure energy disgustingness. Yeah. I recently bought a bottle, put hours and hours of prayer into it. It's my Galactic History 2.0 bottle. Okay, so I have a few sips here and there. Does that make me an alcoholic? Absolutely not. It does. I don't judge myself for it. Even if I went through the bottle in a week, it wouldn't matter. It is the joy that I put in it, the completion and success out of a bottle itself. Okay, you all know I'm not a big drinker, never have been. I watched my friends destroy themselves with drugs and alcohol. I was a limo driver. I didn't want to drink. I didn't want it anymore, even around me. But I also understood there came a point where I had to use it for its alchemical purpose. And there comes a moment in someone's alchemical journey, hey, my mood's not right. Let me make a mood enhancing prayer bottle. That would be a red wine that I have with a meal. Or I'll brew my own, berry wine or something to that effect, because they're very easy to do, very, very easy to do. And same with brewing your own hard alcohol. It's not hard to do. People have been doing it since the dawn of humanity. It's a way to store energy. So it's a personal choice. And then what you've already put into it. Like I have several bottles that have all different forms of prayer. One that's specifically for healing. One that's for, hey, you got coronavirus blues. Okay. You can't get out and do anything. Everybody's locked down. And then I have the ones which are my journeying bottles, which I've been putting prayers into for 7, 8, 9 years. And those are brews that I went and bought. And then many of those were like 30, 40-year-old bottles of whiskey that normally would be like $100. But it was already something that was aged with a professional person's ancestral energies behind it. Yes, it did have a sigil on it or a maker's mark, but I was okay with that. Okay, and I have a few bottles that I've brewed myself that I'll never drink, which are my intimate protection bottles, just like what Maddie's made.
I also have I have another one as well, and this just goes to show the eclecticity of alcohol as well. I have one which is a bottle of very, very high strength rum that's got about 1.5 ounces of cannabis in it, and that sits on my shrine. So it takes all of the prayers that get at the shrine. That's in my attention as I do it. And so that there, you can use it. You can spray it on yourself. Yep. You can put marks over your dreaming body. You can put a few drips of it into your ceremonial fire with your other alcohol if you want to really zhuzh things up. If you wanted to take a swig out of it, you'll be on a hell of a journey. There's so many different ways that you can use alcohol as its spirit form, but it has to have that prayer and a decent amount of it as well, in my opinion. Yeah.
Just before I left for Mount Shasta to go do Galactic History, I bought 2 bottles of 151 rum, which is like the strongest rum that's out there. And I put 1 ounce of cannabis in each one and I buried them as part of my journey of journeys. So I've done that stuff too. And anybody else out there that really wants to explore something, it's not about drinking it. It's all the other ways you can use it. And you can drink it, but there's so many other ways of using it. It's stored energy of your own prayer, essence of your essence.
So Andrew, why I've got you here quickly, it's so funny, I was thinking about this today. So if you've got a brew that, like I have, I've got one that's got so much brew in it, prayer in it, beg your pardon, that it's a special kind of brew, a really super special. And if I was to put years worth of prayer into this, would there be any benefit in consuming it? Or would that be kind of risky?
But you want to, over the year, tell it you're going to consume it on a date. Yep. Let's say there's a year lead up so that you can program into it hindsight and foresight.
Yes.
All lessons you've already learned, all techniques you already know well, but each time you give something to that bottle, it's a reminder, because that is a living spirit.
Yes.
And does it go through an end process? Technically it does, but it'll be reborn into another brew. If it wants.
Understood. Thank you, Andrew.
It's just give it that intention and understand, like, sometimes you only need like that bottle with all the cannabis in it if you ever decided to use it. There's many reasons. You could be in a moment of crisis of faith, or this is one of those things I'm leading myself up to, and tell the bottle you're going to have 2 shots out of it to start a journey, and you're going to be alone for 48 hours.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Your choice.
Yeah. Cool.
Andrew, is it still appropriate to record your prayers and revocations and play them to the alcohol then for drinking?
Yeah. That's multidimensional living. That's multidimensional living.
Yeah.
Yeah. Remember, it's thinking. Are we thinking at macrovolts or microvolts or macrovolts?
Yeah. Has anyone had any experiences with alcohol like this? Other than Matty?
Anybody have any negative experiences with alcohol?
For nearly 40 years.
Maddie, once you changed your relationship with changed your relationship with alcohol, it showed you a whole different way of using it.
It was incredible. Just for a bit of background for everybody, it's kind of a very negative grandfather that I have, a maternal grandfather. I never knew him, but that energy was always interfering with me, and in a very sexual way. Just it's hard to go into it, but Andrew suggested that I make the brew, and so I did the brew, and I put lots and lots and lots of prayer, and I failed the first one, so I did the second one. And once it's set out in a grid, and I used orgonite before, but once you've got that prayer and it's all the brew, sorry, and it's all sacred, and you put all your prayer into it, and you have a kind of closing ceremony, and then you put it out, the effect it has is absolutely instant, and they just cannot reach this. And I was able to then actually have the space of mind. Even some of the monkey mind stopped, and I was able to have the space of mind to look back on my life and see all of the times that this particular being had affected me throughout time, in situations I'd taken as my own character that were not just purely my own character. And it was a huge healing process, and literally creates a fortress, an absolute fortress. It's a phenomenal alchemy. It really is.
I have to say, I really can't drink much alcohol at all. The slightest little bit of alcohol really affects me. So I don't know what that is. It doesn't really bother me that much, but I get an awful lot out of a little drop.
It's the sugar.
Is it?
My mom's the same way. She could have one, let's say 5 sips of a beer and begin to acting slightly drunkish.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the sugar. That's all that it is. It's sugar.
And is that the sugar not agreeing, or what is it?
No, it's fermented sugar. Your body's taking and using the fermented sugar for some reason. Right. And what you can do is find extremely low alcohol by volume beer.
Right.
1%. It is out there, and alcohol drinks that are 1% or 1.5%, and begin to test yourself with that, and then maybe get a little something else. It's okay to open a beer and not finish it.
Mm.
There are a lot of people, like, you open a beer, that's $2 wasted away. No, it's not.
Mm.
Okay. There's plenty of stuff that you can do with that excess beer without drinking it. Plenty. It is still a fermented, energetic thing that you can put all sorts of prayers in. It can be an instantaneous soup, ancestral soup for you. Okay? Just pour it into a bowl, start praying over it, and then offer to the land, because it's great nutrients for the land.
Right. I do seem to have more of a tolerance with spirits, like whiskies or anything like that, but not with wines or beers. Right. Nope. It's just interesting thinking.
Buy a bottle and put a whole bunch of prayers into it, and then begin, a sipping test here and there. That's it.
So,
Martina, hold on. Martina, how does alcohol affect you, Martina?
That's an unfair question.
I'm psychic.
Okay, so I have had a lot of judgment around alcohol because my background, I grew up with a dad who liked to drink a little bit too much, which has caused a lot of issues at home. I've been around, in the oil industry. I've pretty much lived with alcohol, not that I was drinking when I was younger. So there was a lot of judgment around it, and I could at the time drink quite a bit, and every evening out. What I'm finding now is that my body is less tolerant towards it, so I much faster. To be honest, I have never looked, because of my judgment around it, I have never looked at the sacredness of it. And I've never gone down this road of making it because it never felt sacred enough for me. Having said that, I had a chat with Jill early on, because I had 2 glasses of wine yesterday, and I could see myself going into, the judgment. And I thought, no, And I started looking at it from a more sacred perspective, you know, but it still knocks me out at the moment, and I'm really trying to stay away from it. But I think to answer the question is, because of the judgment that I had before, I haven't really latched onto the sacredness of it yet.
So knowing the mechanics of your spirit, your judgment of it, when you drink it, what do you think the judgment does alchemically wise to the way you process alcohol?
It numbs me. It numbs my awareness.
No. What do you think it does to you? You have a judgment of something that you're drinking. What is it? It's not just numbing your awareness. Your judgment that you're consuming is doing something to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I probably wouldn't have that numbing effect if I wouldn't have my belief system geared up towards it. Is that what you mean?
There's more there. Your judgment in it is so strong you're not even realizing the nature of the mechanics of it consuming judgment.
Would it be blocking in some way? Blocking maybe some benefits?
Totally blocking the other side of alcohol.
Putting
you in a numb state, which is what your father used to XXX to XXX. You're not realizing, you have realized it in the past. In your current state, it can do a whole bunch of things. It can let you down, and you can have one sip and it can give you lightning bolts of energy. You don't need a whole glass. Just like Mary.
I use it for the opposite, actually, because you know my energy is so intense, and sometimes I just I have a glass of wine to actually just get me out of the creator mode that I'm constantly in.
And there's I'm saying there's a different way to use it when the judgment isn't in the essence of what you're drinking. That if there is a bottle there that has all of the positive work in it, and then you have to face the judgment each sip.
Yeah, and I started looking at that. I could perceive the difference yesterday when I had the 2 glasses. I said to myself, this is not because you want to get out of this reality or you want to, numb yourself to it. It was a different way of looking at it already.
And there's so many angles to look there, and it's just one of the many journeys on there. Again, just like I was telling Maddie, all you need to do is change your relationship with it, and it gives you a whole different set of tools to add to the toolbox.
Yeah.
Because even kombucha has alcohol in it. It's a fermented drink. It's like 0.06% or 0.6%. Okay? Anything fermented, even pickles have a certain volume of alcohol to them.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeast and bread, same thing. You can make spirit bread too.
Yeah, and any judgment takes you out of choice. So I'm aware of that. This is that little trigger, where I'm still learning a few things when I So it's
I
good.
had the trigger too because of many, many years of limo driving and saying drunk upon drunk upon drunk upon drunk. And then when the teaching came to me, it was boom. I'm looking at the bars, seeing the energy in the bottles. Why did I never see this stuff before? And it was revelation after the cans of beer inside the refrigerators that have been there for months, and 1,000 people in the grocery stores go by, and I'm like, oh, that's energetically disgusting.
Yeah.
Well, Andrew, on last Friday, I had 2 or 3 glasses of wine, really unusual for me. I just sort of wanted to escape some of the reality, a bit like Martina was saying. But I kept having out-of-body experiences that night. And that wasn't, I didn't take it in any sacred way at all. It was really just sort of, as I say, just getting out of really a situation I wasn't happy in. And why would the out-of-body experiences occur? Because my soul was then trying to get out of the reality I wasn't happy in.
Because it amplified the mood of not being happy. And what does alcohol do for a spirit? It adds to your spirit, which was giving your spirit a chance to get out of the body, because ultimately programs were running you of not wanting to be in your environment, and you reverted to a drink that allowed you to not be in your environment. That's the negative uses for alcohol.
Yes.
Now, I would highly advise you to pick up 2 or 3 bottles of your favorite wine and give it as many hours of prayer and then stick it off to the side. And the next time you feel I don't want to be in the reality, you drink from those bottles.
Okay.
You're gonna have a whole different experience. As for the out of body, the spirit was giving what you needed in that moment.
Yeah, because they weren't unpleasant experiences at all.
Want, need, want, need, want, need. You were
Yeah.
teeter-tottering between want and need, and the alcohol just gave you a better greasy choice of want, need.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Okay. Can we move on to some other tools? We've talked a bit about alchemy with alcohol. There's other sorts of alchemy we can use as well to access the unseen world. I use grandmother's soups, which I think most of you here know. For those of you who don't, I take chicken bones and make a stock over my stove for several hours, create sacred space, read revocations and prayers. Then I take it round my land as an offering for the ancestors, as Andrew was just saying there. And also I take it to certain points where there's traffic lights in my area or barriers or sort of various system things. I've done things like that before. Has anyone else had experience of making, of doing alchemy like that with soups and had any results from it?
Well, Andrea, why don't you pop in here and say a little bit about your sacred food, since we've got you on today?
Mm.
Hi guys, I made it. Yeah, some of you don't know me, some of you know me. I'm an alchemist, and what I do with my food is create an impact, like Laura said, in the seen and the unseen. And I kind of which means if you I kind of opened a holographic restaurant yesterday. It's like when you look at the fish just by, let's say, on YouTube or whatever, you actually get healed. I mean, I'm eating it now, but it's. I had a session with Andrew. I have been baptized. So and after that, it just some things I cleared, but it took me to a level that I never expected it took me. And actually, I had feedback from clients that I healed. I created this cake. It's called Celestial Moon Cake, and I matched it with my poems, and they heal from trauma, they heal from abuse, they heal their womb, and all sorts of other stuff. And yeah, that's what I do. And when I create, I'm really just in that space. I'm really focused. I never know what's going to come out of it because I go out in nature, and I really open myself up to the level that or the frequency. I mean, maybe Andrew knows more about this than I do. But that it actually, it's already, it's like making an impact. It's like a domino effect, and I know it's going to be bigger than that. And with regards to what you said about the alcohol, I do every 3 months a colonic, obviously not now, but what we discovered with that lady, that ask your body what type of alcohol it likes. I did ask, and obviously I do the blessings and all that, what you talked about, and I'm fine. I don't have any problems with it. So I think that's a good one to ask. But with the food, I mean, Martina knows, I mean, she used to come here every Thursdays to taste my food. And so she knows what I do with regards to the food. But I think, like I said, since I had a session with Andrew, I just went to a different level of, I don't even know how to, I don't even know how to say it in words, because I can write it, and you can see it on the YouTube, and you can read it and taste, like literally you can taste the food, and you get healed from all sorts of stuff. But it's
so if I can say something, I've had the opportunity to taste your food, and you're obviously raw vegan, and the colors are absolutely stunning. And from what I have seen, talking about sacredness, making food or drink sacred, you so absolutely love what you do when it comes to food. And you read the revocations to the food, and you have your not just spiritual cleanliness, you have all sorts of cleanliness going on when you cook, and you really step into a different space, into a sacred little space when you do that. So,
yes. I mean, what happened on last Wednesday was we went to our once per week exercise, and this pink stuff appeared, and I said to my husband, "Oh, do you see that?" And he said, "Yes," and then it disappeared. So it appeared and it disappeared. So I'm not sure what that was, but what I perceived from it, it was, and this is when it happened with the cake. This is the celestial womb cake. That it actually, I was able to journey to the womb and ask, "Who am I?" Like, as in, to perceive myself, the real I am present moment. But maybe Andrew has more comments about this. I don't know if you have seen that or you have not seen that.
When it comes to food, just like alcohol, passion, and the passion of that passion that amplifies the work and the alchemy. Because otherwise, you're just a McDonald's worker assembling food. And we all know fast food energy's got teenager, hormones in it. And that's why some people love it. Okay? But you have not just found your passion, you have found your magical passion. And I've said since many, many years, food is the last place, food and alcohol is the last place real magicians can operate unrestricted. Food magic is as old as eating, and anyone can create food magic. Why does mom's chicken soup heal? It's not just the placebo effect, it's the energy. And you have found the focus, the passion, and the daily practice, and have tamed it in such a way you can reproduce magic like that. That's what you're doing. You're a magician.
Thank you.
The next is refining your recipes and figuring out what everyone wants to take. Personally, womb cake is not something I eat. So that's cake. It's not
It's
good.
delicious, Andrew. It's delicious.
Thing, but on a menu, I don't know about eating a celestial womb cake.
You would love it. I'm telling you, everybody loves it.
On a menu, looking in my face. The amount of jokes that could be said about it, but you can come to it. Yeah, celestial cakes.
I got away with it.
What kind of yeast are you using?
No, it's raw vegan. It's raw
I know.
You know.
I'm just joking.
I have to tell you guys that when I spoke to Andrew, he said to me, "Can you make a blood sausage?" I'm like, he's asking a raw vegan to make a blood sausage. Is he out of his mind? And that changed everything. That changed. One day I woke up and I because what I do is I always ask my body what it wants to wear, what kind of crystals, blah, blah. And I stood outside and I looked in the mirror and I said to that was a very emotional day. And I'm thinking, this is the day of redemption. And I said to my husband, go out, don't even come in here. And what we talked about with Andrew, I healed everything. Andrew, that was just life-changing. I mean, beyond life-changing. It's incredible. It was, wow, I didn't talk about this with anybody. But we saw the poem, we saw the people that, you know, who read it and everything. So that's the ancestral blood sausage, but it's raw vegan, so it's no pork. But I had to go to that space to heal whatever we
just to go to the space was the magic.
Yeah.
And just one thing to add here before we carry on with other tools. Actualized embodiment here, okay? She's creating magic through using her body, using the stuff that is happening here in this reality. And that, I think, is a big, for me anyway, because that was my biggest realization. There is nothing mystical until you start creating the mystic for yourself through application of your body. You use the body, you use the hands, you use what is available here, and then you start creating beyond that.
For me,
now shut up, let's get on with it.
Even though I've had medicine journeys, and I've had all sorts of unique mystical experiences, the most mystical experience I had was a pig roast with some Native Americans. This pig came to us. It had already been slaughtered, but we had done this maybe 3-hour prayer ritual for it, and then put it on a 24-hour roast, where people would come and give offerings to the pig fire. And it's just a traditional southern style pig roast, but it was 24 hours of pure fire mysticism, watching the grease of the pig go bzzz, and then having a piece of flesh that was just mystical in my mouth. And by the end of the 24 hours, well over 300 people had offered prayers to that pig.
Wow.
Okay? And I'll never forget it. Never forget it. It just showed me that the Hearthstone magic is alive and living everywhere. And it's our birthright to stay into that.
Well, that's the thing with all of this. All of this is our birthright.
Right.
But it's just hidden from us and kept from us. And, you know, it's just such wonderful things to do. Just on food, just briefly, if you were, so you're putting prayers and revocations into whatever you're cooking, but if there's more than just you eating it, you actually need to tell those other people what you've done, don't you? Otherwise you're treading on their journey. When you're an alchemical food wizard, as long as you're not doing anything that's manipulation and control, your magic is already accepted in the serving part, the serving journey. Oh, hence being a mum and cooking for your children and putting all that love into it. That really goes with a chef that's at a restaurant. So there comes a point as what's being manipulative. Well, that's an internal question. Are you putting, negative things or control manipulation things into the food? Well, you should know that when you're doing it. Yeah. Okay? Other than that, by you being the chef, there is a tacit accepted consent. Okay? Yeah. Can you go too far? Absolutely. But everything in moderation, even moderation. Yeah, well, it's just going along with all the other ingredients you're putting in, all the physical ingredients. You don't list those when you dish up. Okay.
And also, Laura, you can also, also through that prayer process, when you're cooking food for people, if you don't want to be too specific about what kind of prayer, just to remove any negative energy, just almost in a revocation style, just to clean your food energetically. It doesn't have to be a specific prayer for any type of healing, but just to make sure that you have energetically connected that food. And I go through the thing where I give permission for the beings to live vicariously through me, and thank anybody involved that's brought that food to me. And just there's some simple prayers that I use that are not specific to anybody, but just create an energetic within the food itself.
Yeah, sharing your Akashic
Yes,
record.
I do that too.
I do that over my morning juice.
Just
sharing.
blessings.
Sorry,
And
Mary.
we're
No,
doing
it's okay. Just blessings and gratitude. I really don't do an awful lot more than that, but I feel that that kind of covers it. There's just one thing I wanted to say about the food. And for me, it's not just the taste. Equally as good for me is the smells. When I walk into the kitchen, and I think I have this from when I was a child, when you come home from school, you know, the smell of the dinner, the smell of the baking, it was almost as good as eating it. And I still love to fill my house with the smell of cooking and the smell of baking. And there's a certain healing and nourishing sense of energy about it that, you know, is unbelievable. It's better than any oils you can buy. There's nothing like it.
The smell of bread. The smell of bread. I don't eat
Yes.
bread, but the smell of bread is just,
It's just
innate, isn't it?
heavenly.
Yeah.
Well, the
And
smell
I
of bread
bake
must
bread.
be wafting across our land at the moment with all the people in lockdown and everybody doing
Yeah.
their homemade baking. Even when there is bread available, suddenly everyone is doing
I mean,
homemade baking, aren't they? So we've now got that alchemy of
Yes.
love going
But
through.
also remember that when I create my food, I like when Martina used to come here, like she used to come at 12, and at 10 o'clock I had no idea what we're gonna eat. So it's like I work with my pre-cognitive workforce. I have an awareness what is required.
Mm,
Hence
mm.
so I'm in tune with that. Hence I created this, and everybody said, wow, like I can taste your food. Like, even if it's on YouTube, I can taste it, I can eat it, I can heal from it. A lot of people want to come on lockdown with me, by the way.
Well, that's your business, darling. Get on with it. Get it out there.
Yeah, I am.
And I love your jungle, what you do with a little poem and la la la. It's perfect. Love it. It's good.
More coming, more coming.
Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, I've got remote viewing written down here as another way to access the unseen, but I don't understand the mechanics of it. So perhaps Andrew can take us through the mechanics of remote viewing before we sort of discuss it and see who else can do it, because it's something everybody can do, isn't it, Andrew?
Yes, so you may have heard me say this before. Remote viewing is marketing. It came out by Ed Dames in 1996 on a show with Art Bell, but before that it had been part of a military program, the movie Men Who Stare at Goats, if you're all familiar with that movie. That is where that modern terminology came from. And since then, people have been offering remote viewing classes that are the same visionary classes mystics have been trying to teach since time immemorial. The Buddhists have a version of it, the Christians have a version of it, everyone has a version of it. But in the term remote viewing, you are just entering the high theta, low delta state in an lucid thing, trying to tune yourself to a subject matter's magnetic north. Now that's just a metaphor. Magnetic north is true north, and a subject matter's true location, position, and then you filter through the Akashic records. Most people don't realize that they're doing that. And then they come up on a subject matter's true north. Well, I've got a bead on it. Then they start perceiving it, talking about it, and comparing notes to somebody else who is trying to validate them. In most scenarios, you get one or two subject matters right and the rest are completely wrong. And sometimes you have these self-fulfilling scenarios where you have people that are very close, but they're speaking in such word salad vagaries, they begin to have a form of accuracy that's unprovable until the higher form of remote viewing comes in. We're using dozens of different spiritual skill sets to go through the filtering process that says, I can accept this as an answer, even though I don't know what the answer is, out of somebody who's wanting to fill in the blanks of an answer. Remote viewing is somebody's giving you a target, and then you're going through the infinite potentialities and possibilities and limiting it down from the infinite to the finite with language.
Andrew, is that a process of entanglement?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But true remote viewing is you are an unentangled observer and an entangled observer at the same time for the express purpose of creating the linguistics of definition.
Before you do it? Your intentions, you mean?
As you're doing it.
Understood.
Yeah.
I must say that I always question myself about remote viewing. There's a part of me that's always wondering how much of this am I actually making up as I'm going along, or how much of it is remote viewing, you know, how much am I actually seeing?
As you're journeying through the infinite potentials, you're spinning the Rolodex of potentials. And every now and then you might catch this, catch this, catch this, which are giving hints to the monkey mind to make pattern recognition. But real remote viewing is not pattern recognition, it's knowingness. And getting out of chemical pattern recognition and into knowingness is the journey of the remote viewer. Am I making a pattern, or am I in knowingness? Am I making a pattern, or am I in knowingness? Or am I in knowingness and then making a pattern I can understand?
Mm.
And would you say, sorry.
No, it's okay. Just sometimes I would find I'd be in knowingness without knowing that I'm in knowingness, if that makes any sense.
That's a natural state, actually.
Yes. It's like something I would sense it rather than see it. You know, the way with remote viewing, you kind of see something, but this would be more really sensing it. And I would actually realize afterwards, you know, that was right, actually, you know, what I was sensing there.
So for many,
but I wouldn't have been aware.
I didn't realize I was remote smelling things, but in that smell was vision.
Okay.
And it's because at the early age I was exposed to the restaurant industry and smells of people, places, things, foods, and this and that I had tuned and honed a smell skill that had vision behind it.
Can I just ask you something, Andrew, about the smell skill? Something that I have noticed actually in myself in the last year maybe or so. If I'm watching something on the telly that has a smell, like a cigarette, for instance, I know you're lighting up there now, I can actually smell it. And I was unaware that that was happening, but I can smell it. I know now I can smell something I see, which is nowhere near me.
Let me ask anyone else about the smell process. Obviously, we all had weird things happen in our lives. Does anybody like to share a weird mystical smell scenario?
I would, Andrew, and I'm taking up a lot of time here, everyone. But I had one just the other day, actually. It was a ceremonial fire, and the ships were over me. I get quite a lot of ship activity, and one of my friends or the collectors that I talked to, they said that they were going to make an appearance, and there was a flash of light to the left, and then this incredibly unusual smell that made me feel quite strange, and it happened twice. And that's just one thing that's happened quite recently with the smell. It was quite strange, quite unique. It was a smell that I'd never smelled before.
Anyone else? Smell-o-vision?
In dreams. I can smell things in dreams and taste things.
Sometimes I have smell memories as well. Like I'll get a smell, like I'll have a smell that reminds me of a place in my childhood or something that I did, a certain place where I was, and it would just all of a sudden just waft. It's almost like a memory smell, you know? Takes me straight back to that place.
Because it's encoded through smell.
Yeah.
Martina, I see you deep in smell thought.
I was happily talking away, being muted. I'm not a big smeller, but you know what Matty just said, you know, the smell reminding me of something in the past. And I just love what you just said. It's like the energy is encoded in the smell. I like that. And then you can actually, because what you do when that happens, you look at it and you try to figure out, well, what is that and why is that? Does it bring up a happy memory, or does it bring something up that is ready for resolution, basically?
Smell is direct access to the vagus nerve in mostly a positive way. There are some smells when people have gone through extreme traumas that can trigger a negative way too.
Yeah, I had an experience when I first came into Reiki, and I was super enthusiastic with it. I think it was day 1 or day 2 of my first Reiki class. And I enthusiastically asked my friend if he would let me do a healing on him. And as we did the healing, I was just hit with one of the most abhorrent smells I've ever come across. And it was useful because, I knew that something powerful was happening and that we were clearing toxicity. But I think since then, I was like, oh, whoa, if this is how I'm reading it, I'm not interested in cultivating this. And I think I shut it down, really, because I have a great sense of smell at the best of times. So I shut down.
Entities can stink, eh?
Yes, they can. So the other side of smell is taste. So your heart was the first organ created. The second sacred organ was the tongue. So smell and taste are indefinitely linked. How many of you have tasted a smell? Think about that.
Yeah.
We all hear the 5 senses. We all have had a smell we can taste.
Well, I suppose with baking, Andrew, you can actually almost taste the baking. You can, the pies and whatever, or the bread, yeah.
Makes your mouth water. The smell
It does. So that's taste, yeah. Yeah. I can also taste the tobacco. But if I see cigarettes, I can actually taste that. But I've actually got a smell of roses quite a few times around me, but that wouldn't involve taste as far as I know.
That's a mystical energy coming through. A rosy smell is almost always an angelic being.
Okay, right.
Some of your loved ones getting in touch, trying to get in touch, probably.
Yes, I'd say so. Yes, somebody might have passed over, yeah.
So when we smell something that's a taste, that's direct portal to the heart and the brain. That's creating that information super high from the brain to the heart. That's the 2 senses connecting the heart and the brain.
Wow.
And of course, this is all relevant to consciousness because it's all about sensory and awareness.
The 5 senses combine to make the 6th sense, which is awareness and consciousness. And then the 7th sense is multidimensional awareness, and using all of the senses as information input.
Yes.
But I remember you saying there's, I think we've got about 50 senses available to us, right, in the long run?
Yep. 5 is enough for most people right now.
Yeah. I've got a really weird question. But you mentioned tongue before, and I grew up with a lot of eating inner organs because, I don't know, my parents used to eat liver and, everything pretty much. We always ate everything,
Out to tail, same here.
Yeah. And I'm just wondering, sometimes when I have a craving to eat tongue, which you get in the supermarket, nicely sliced. My daughter thinks I'm a complete whacker. And I'm wondering, is that really what my body craves in order to help me with my, I don't know, authentic voice or with the taste and the smell and all that?
So in most scenarios, when you're craving tongue or any other body organs, it's the actual amino acids in there the body needs to create some other energetic response in the body. But when we eat a cow's tongue, the cow moves. What is a cow? How does it communicate? Is there a process in there that's helping you communicate? Absolutely there is. But it's more about the chemical journey that one gets. from consuming those things. Same thing, like I grew up snout to tail. You ate everything from snout to tail. You know, many times you open the refrigerator, there's a whole head inside the refrigerator.
Yeah.
Nothing was wasted.
Correct.
Yeah.
Nothing was wasted. Let me grab my power cord. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Okay, guys. Are we finished on the food aspect? Do
I
we
think
want
so.
to... Sorry?
I think so. Otherwise, I'm getting hungry. I need food now.
Yeah, getting hungry. I've got journeying and visualization written down as other ways we can access the unseen. Is there anybody who'd like to say anything on that? Does anybody use it? Anybody use visualization in meditation and so on? I think we all probably all do.
Yeah,
don't we?
yeah, I think
Yeah.
so. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the
journey-
journeying is like a little bit, you know, ties in a little bit like with the remote viewing, doesn't it? A little. You're
Yes, I guess just different mechanics. Yeah.
How do you
Anybody-
journey, sorry, how do you journey without visualizing? Are they the same thing?
Really? Yes. Well, for me, they are.
A visualization and a journey. A journey is an extended visualization.
Yes. Yeah. It's more of a story, isn't it? You're creating.
Okay.
That's the thing. What I was saying earlier on, to take out the myth out of the mystical. It's when you get started with it, don't look at it from a mystical perspective, you know, because journeying is not, you know, we're not journeying in order to have an outer body experience. We're actually journeying in order to get into our infinite self, to become that creator that is infinite by using our imagination, like I said earlier on. So the more you use your imagination, the more you create, the more infinite you become. It's that simple. You know? And the magic is almost a byproduct of it, you know. And once you really feel sovereign enough and you feel good about doing the practice, doing the work, then there comes the time where you're actually starting to invite other species, if you wish, other energies to co-create with you. But the idea of the journey is actually to create a bubble of reality around you to make it possible for them to come in and share that space with you.
Would it be fair to say, Andrew, you're actually using your precognitive workforce when you journey?
Not always. Sometimes you want to be on the edge of the unknown without the precognitives doing stuff for you.
Yeah.
And there are other times a journey is just about turning off the monkey mind and the infinite mind, so you can be alone with no thoughts, no space, and achieve a form of personal silent expansion of your energy, which is an acceptance of the totality of you, who can accept silence as another form of sensory. And that can be its own silent journey. Like I grew up on the power of silence from the Native Americans. The silent space was where you learned the fundamentals of how to journey in a silent space. Because after a while in that unique silent space, you could have 50 journeys simultaneously going on, but this mind isn't picking up all the stories. It's all in knowingness.
Yeah.
And our journeys connect us to our dream worlds as well, you know. And when I have to give Andrew credit here. One of my most favorite journeys at the moment, beautiful, is the journey to the sacred mountain.
Yeah.
And you know, and going to the Grove of the Matriarch, Grove of the Patriarch, setting up your camp. You know, and that part of me that when I got to the top of the sacred mountain, I'm up on the top and built a fire on the top. That I almost feel like that part of me is an active live dream world. You know, so some visualizations can be just so powerful. You feel that you are really creating somewhere. You know, and sometimes like the Sanctuary for All Souls. I mean, you know, sometimes I dive bomb into my healing pool. You know, if I'm feeling down or anything like that. Visualizations, it's like you just get to create and be whatever you want to be. It's so powerful. For me, I love that part of the journey. Creativity.
What would be my need? I always want to climb a hill to get a view. Is that my own sacred mountain journey in reality that I'm doing?
It's probably a mechanic you created that makes the suspension of belief much easier. And that's not a bad thing. We all have to figure out the shortcuts into spirituality that don't take away the essence of the message.
Yeah.
All too often people want these instant shortcuts that take away the essence of the message. And your journey to the top of a hill is what you need to do to clear yourself to see the vision.
Yeah. But it's my preference most times that I walk, and friends I walk with, we rather than the valleys, we prefer to get up to the view. And I just wondered if that was a particularly shamanic thing. It feels like it is.
And to top of hills have more energy.
Okay.
They have a different focal of energy.
Yeah, yeah. And also where I do my dowsing too, of course. Yeah, yeah. Anyone else got anything on that? We were talking, Andrew, between the difference between visualization and journeying, and just saying that journeying is a longer form of visualization. It's creating more of a story from a visualization.
There comes a moment in a journey where co-creating at the macro level, where you're not in chemical memory creation, you're in that superluminal space. And that ultimately is where everyone wants to get with their journey, where they're journeying, where there's no chemical process in the body, it's pure spirit. And a memory is easy to hold.
And what about, we've covered this on mentorship, I know, but for the benefit of others here too, the visions before us. So we talked about the third eye being a projector. Mm-hmm. And at times I've been able to look at a photo I've got on the wall, maybe of trees, and gradually getting into a very deep meditative state. Before me, the whole wall can turn into a tree and turn into colours and turn into many visualizations. And now it happens for me, as you know, quite a lot with my own photos on the wall. The trees can move, people can move in them like Harry Potter. So what mechanics are we using there? I know we're using our third eye as a projector. Is the information coming as a download into our crown chakra?
So when you're projecting, you're perceiving the data also. And it's like taking a picture that's this big and blowing it up. It's a lot easier to read, isn't it? More detail in it. And in your medicine journey, you were able to instantly go into that high frequency space because you had regularly practiced projection and observing. Project and observe. So you can perceive all the data that's there for you, and your infinite mind is putting this infinite data up there, and your calm monkey mind, who's going into that journey space and going through the surrender of all this information, just allows it to make natural pattern recognition so the journey makes sense. Okay.
So it's not necessarily just messages from our higher self or ancestors. It's a combination. Yeah. Okay.
Can I ask Andrew a question here about journeying? Andrew, you know, things like the Sanctuary for All Souls and these kind of meditation journeys. When one practices something like that, and you know, for a beginner, obviously, it can be quite difficult. But after a while, it just starts to flow and it becomes a lot easier. And you know, you could spend a lot of time and really expand on what you see. What effect does that have on the dreaming body or the unseen world? And is that our own dreaming body that we're functioning there, or one version of it?
Well, the first thing it does is it makes the dreaming body more in tune with the conscious practitioner. So there increases a resonance between the infinite and the finite understandings. And once there's a resonance, you create your own orbit around yourself. And the dreaming body is supposed to be parked in your intestinal tracts, but a lot of people's, their dreaming body is out in their aura. It's not parked in the garage anymore for whatever reason. And the more we become in tune, we learn how to park the dreaming body in the intestinal tract, no matter the junk inside the garage, which is, you know, intestinal crap that's there that blocks us out. Mm-hmm. as we become more resonant and more in tune, there's an alignment in the chakra systems with the dreaming body in it that gives us aha or whoa or any of the other experiences that go, hey, that wasn't something I was expecting, and it taught me a big lesson. So it's bringing that alignment in. Like in the Sanctuary for All Souls, there's a whole bunch of spots you can use individual teachings or see it as the whole. And then if you practice it just as one big teaching over and over again, it's going to teach you one set of lessons. And then once you innately understand the next part of the journey and the next part of the journey, the dreaming body will become more of a data sender to the practitioner of that journey.
Understood. Awesome.
Yeah. And same thing with the heart meditation too. It's designed to help you take and process more of your own data.
Absolutely.
And then the data sets, the pattern recognitions that are already done by the infinite soul for you. That's the precognitive workforce going, here's the cheat sheet.
Yeah.
Anybody got anything else on visualization they want to ask? Share? The other thing I've got here is sacred ceremony. So that's something I do to access the unseen. A lot of us do. And I do that because my belief is I'm co-creating with the ancestors of the land, the earth energies and so on, which one create a sacred space for me to work in to give me the protection, but also give me the portal within which to receive the messages or do the ceremony itself. I mean, the fire itself is a portal as well. Has anybody got any questions? Has anybody practiced that themselves? Forms of sacred ceremony to access the unseen? And Andrew, is the reason we do it for what I've said, one, for protection, but also two, to relate and co-create with the ancestors?
That's the bigger picture and purpose. Everybody comes to ceremonies for different reasons. Some out of a need of gratification, instant gratification, and that's okay. But it's what we build many ceremonies in a row that become your weekly, monthly, yearly practice that allow hindsight in during a moment of transition. So foresight is natural. And when we look at the mechanics of hindsight, which is allowing yourself to look at your memories of your past and see patterns, and then foresight, knowing your current patterns and knowing what's a self-fulfilling prophecy of self-defeat and what's a self-fulfilling prophecy of confidence in one's choices. And ceremony gives that clarity in the moment to use hindsight and foresight as natural processes. And then the other side of ceremony, you know, a lot of people use it for protection. In all reality, we don't need to use ceremony as protection. It is more of a prayer. There are many people who perceive they're under attack, and that's okay. And in Matthew's situation, he had a really negative entity that was ancestral, that he needed to do the ceremonies as an ancestral resolution. Okay, that's his equation. And then there are others that, you know, Andrea, you know, your cooking is your ceremony. Can you do other ceremonies? Yeah, it will only enhance your cooking. And that goes with everyone there. A ceremony is really about intent and focus.
Exactly. And I just wanted to say that, you know, let's take out the ceremonial out of the ceremony. Yeah, like you've just said it right now. You know, whatever you put your intention in, whatever you put your passion to, whatever you make, even sacred is sometimes misleading because it takes you off the path again, because it's just something you really, what did you just say? You just do it because it feels good. It's joyful, you know, that type of stuff. I want to bring that back in because I think lots of people get thrown by ceremony. Oh my God, I don't have the clothes to do ceremony. You know, I need to have huge fires. You can have a ceremony by sitting down, you know, turning everything off and just going within and make that ceremonial too.
Exactly. Now, there's a lot of people who suffer an ancestral wound because a priest class people did all the ceremonies for them for millennia, many, many millennia. And that they have to own their own power to say, I'm doing what a priest would normally do for thousands of people for myself.
Exactly.
Because you're right, you can just make this a ceremony right now, or go through the pomp and circumstance of that for its purpose.
Yeah.
But is that also honoring the ancestors when you do, you know?
And once again, macro versus micro. And we can be fully macro and just ourselves in this moment and now. We know the moment and now is ours to do whatever we want with. But when we see the priest class who did everything for us, that took away our sovereignty, there are many people who need that journey of ceremony to get that macro sovereignty of spiritual prayer back again.
Yeah.
I'd like to add another perspective here, if I may, as well, because one of the beautiful things that ceremony did for me was it brought me into a natural flow. It hasn't so much become about creating huge prayers. Not to say that I don't sometimes have ceremonies to burn off energy that's been built up, but what it's done is you have your main equinox and solstice ceremonies, and you can lead up from each one to the next one. And, you know, even so much as to gather the timber for your next one weeks and weeks in advance and put the prayers into the timber and build up and build up and build up. And ceremony also can create a beautiful natural flow with Earth Mother's natural cycles. And you begin to see larger patterns and larger scales of how we can use our ceremonial process to become much more natural living beings. That's what it did for me. That was a beautiful part of it for me. The ebbs and flows and the cycles of the earth, with your own ebbs and cycles of your own life and your own life path. And over an extended period of time, over say a whole year's worth of ceremony, you've been leading up to certain key points, you can see the changes that have gone on. It's a beautiful part of it. It's a natural flow.
It's a tool.
Sorry, Martina.
It's a tool. And every tool is what you're taking outside of yourself to look at, to work with, to interact with. Once you become the energy of the ceremony, you don't have to go, you know, I mean, this is an ongoing practice, you know, it's an ongoing process. But once you become the joyful creator that you are, that sacred creator that you are, you don't even have to, as far as I'm concerned, and please correct me if I'm wrong, to do a lot of, you know, connecting with the ancestors, because you become it, you are it anyway.
I think that's what Jamie Sands calls dancing the dream, isn't
Exactly.
it, Andrew? You're living it.
So
and in a part of your prayers, you know, in a ceremonial process, the ancestors should be very much part of that prayer anyway, even if it's just simply calling the ancestors in respectfully and making offerings, then, you know, you've done that part of it as far as I'm concerned. You can obviously expand on it if you want to, but the ancestors are always present, you know?
So Martina,
Absolutely.
So Martina, you know I'm a wordsmither. So I want to pose to you the word tool and the definition you just give it. Now reuse the word tool for utensil. What's the difference in the word? And then the connotations of the definition.
The utensil has less significance to me than the tool itself.
Is it more micro than macro?
The utensil is more like, with the tool, in the context that I was talking now, the tool was almost like a separation. The utensil is more an aid without the separation.
Okay.
Does that make any sense?
Yeah, the tool to me is like a method of some in the way you approach something, whereas a utensil is something of lesser importance, but that you could use to fulfill that method, if you like.
Can you do it without the tool?
The tool is purely a tool, okay? If you want to explore something. It helps you to go into, it's almost like, if I look, the way I look at consciousness, it includes everything. In order for me to explore consciousness, I'm creating something outside of myself so I can explore it, knowing full well that it's all part of me.
There's a mechanism in which the tool allows you to process.
Yes.
I'm going to get back to the word utensil. And anyone else pop in here. I'm using the semantics of word building because it helps us define certain ceremonies are utensils and some are this macro tool that Martina is describing. That's the difference between ritual and ceremony. They both can be micro and macro simultaneously or individually, but there are times we need the utensil to slowly feed us the journey because we can't take it on too fast, or we use the tool to hammer it itself into us, but we don't take anything on. So knowing the tool and utensil metaphor will help us to understand what certain ceremonies' purpose or purpose can be.
Yeah.
Exactly. This is Andrew, you mentioned a few sentences ago the word clarity. For me, clarity is everything. Clarity is a gift. Clarity is a precious, precious gift or being for me. And like you said, you can have billions of different ceremonies or rituals or whatever. You can have cacao, sage, fire, whatever. But for me, it's the awareness and the clarity. What is it that I'm trying to create here? What is it? What is the bigger picture in here? But it comes from awareness, and of course it comes from practicing and doing the stuff, every day.
And to finish off what I'm saying, sometimes the utensil helps us with the lower form of awareness that gives us the broader, bigger picture. So when we're using the big tool, the sledgehammer, the tow truck, or whatever it's going to be, it gives us a better perspective of all that stuff coming in. Like, we all can eat a meal without a knife and a fork, but it kind of is a lot less messy. We don't burn our fingers. That's the benefit of the utensil or a utility ritual or a utility ceremony.
Cool.
Yeah. Thank you.
So what you're saying, Andrew, is that the tool is the ceremony, the prayer itself, and the utensil is whichever way you try to do that.
How you serve it to yourself, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I was just going to say one word to clarity. Clarity is the result of all of those tools and utensils, okay? And clarity is not a stagnant thing. It's very moving, and it's constantly reorganizing and re-clarifying itself. So we need to be careful not to get hung up on certain clarities, because it's a living being almost. If you look at the energy, it's like constantly changing as we are exploring the consciousness.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, we talked about with Andrew, I think the different show, Andrew's talking about clarity, how precious gift that is to have. So when you have it, then this is what I'm saying, because I think Jill was asking a question. And from what I perceived from her question, the energies, I'm thinking, okay, if you'd like to start this, it's good to have a little bit of clarity, which is what Andrew explained earlier with the tools and the utensils. Then everything is going to be, the bigger picture is going to come, to you in a totally different way, in a totally different energy. Very important to have clarity.
Cool.
Especially now.
And to add to something Martina said, there comes a time where clarity can be its own enlightenment trap. Because we're stuck.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean.
We're stuck on one form of clarity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Clarity turns into conclusion, and that's when you again go out of choice, and you're actually fucking yourself by doing that.
Pretty much, yeah. We got it.
We need to be careful. What do you call it? Enlightenment trap? No.
An enlightenment trap, yeah.
Enlightenment trap, yeah. We've got to be careful with that. It turns into an over definition and that sort of stuff. So, yeah.
Well, you can think you have it, and then the more you explore consciousness, it can turn into some other form of clarity.
It's like a bird. As soon as you have it, it's gone again.
You have to be aware of what you're doing, yeah. Of course.
Awareness.
No.
Guys, have we exhausted all forms that we want to today for consciousness exploration? There's more if anybody wants to throw it in there.
Laura,
Make a post of Andrew while he's here.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Yeah, come on. Oh.
Hi, Norman.
Hi, Laura. Before I go to the question, you might quite like this, Laura, because you said at the beginning of this session we were on a bus ride. And also last week, when we were talking about dreams, you suggested that you should keep a piece of paper and a pencil by your bed for journaling. And I don't normally dream, or I didn't pick up the dreams, but this week I had a dream. And of course, I wrote it down. And this was a 747 aeroplane going along blue skies. And suddenly it looped the loop. And as it looped the loop and it came back again, it muted, it transformed into a London bus. And I got in the bus and I went off on the bus ride. So thanks for talking to me about the journaling. But the question really I've got here, it's on walking. And because we're in the lockdown at the moment, I try and do 10,000 steps a day. So that's about an hour and a half of walking. I've always known that walking brings you good ideas. And I just finished this lovely book by a chap called, he's an Irishman, Professor Shane O'Mara, who's a neurologist. And the book's called The Praise of Walking. And in this book, he's talking, I knew this happened, a lot of people in history, a lot of great thinkers and writers get the great ideas when they're walking. You know, Charles Darwin, for instance, used to go for a 30-minute walk before breakfast, and he would get his ideas from that morning walk. So the question is walking a way of getting the access into the unseen world by, I suppose everyone's different, I guess, but is that one way that you could have that tool to get into the unseen world?
Absolutely. The Australians call it walkabout. They go on walkabout for months and months and months at a time. Absolutely, walking is one of those unique things because we are in motion in space and time. And when our awareness of walking is to allow our awareness into our body, we are doing a micro ritual of awareness of the moment of now. And the more we're in the moment of now, walking at a strict, regular basis, the more you have strict control of your spiritual body, mind, and spirit to be in a state of focus. And the byproduct of focus is what? Success.
We talk about walking meditations, right? So it's almost like a meditation, and you are connected to the earth.
Yep.
You know, and you're walking obviously in nice green places, so you're connecting in awareness or unawareness with all the energies around you that are constantly a contribution to you.
Yep. You want to have a little experiment? Do you have any crystals at your house? Any small ones?
Crystals?
Yeah.
I don't think I've got any crystals.
Well, you can buy really small ones for a few pounds, really small ones, and stick them in your socks as you're walking. Ones that are like this big.
Okay.
You will have a very unique energetic experience of focus on a regular basis when you walk with little crystals in your socks. Just at the base of your ankle. Yeah.
I'll try that.
Yeah.
But I know certainly, I live in Richmond, near London, and we have a very big park, a royal park with deer and ponds and animals and birds, etc. And I know that you get the best feelings going into the park rather than just walking along the pavements. So you get that extra feeling there, certainly. But I shall try these crystals.
Yeah, also, so what the thing is, I get a lot of people that are professional writers or script writers who have firm deadlines and they're in full writer's block. And what I'll tell them to do is this exact same process, which is go on a walk to get the stagnant energy of your old focus out of you. Okay? A lot of times focuses can become toxic because you're trying to force creativity. And a regular stroll through the park takes away that toxic process. But when you add crystals, you're allowing the energy to purify itself, because that's what the crystals do. A variety of crystals do things. In the beginning, it doesn't matter what crystal it is, just as long as it feels comfortable in your sock and is not, it's overly large or whatever. And you'll begin to realize that whole new states of focuses can come with you.
You know,
Try that. Thank you.
there's also, Norman, there's another thing in terms of letting go of, you know, perceptions and blocks and stuff like that. I call that the reptile brain walk.
Yep.
When I just walk into the park and I don't allow myself to make a route plan where I'm going. And every second by second, I'm allowing my body, my reptile brain, basically, to take me wherever it wants to go. And that's being completely in the moment. That takes you completely in the moment. It takes you out of focus. And also it allows you to start practicing the trust in yourself. And you might be surprised which paths you actually explore by doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's the great American poet, isn't it? Robert Frost, one of his great poems, the road not taken. I think it's something like that. Isn't it?
Travel.
Beautiful poem. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like to walk. If I ever feel like I've got stagnant energy within me, I like to just walk somewhere I've never walked before. Even if it's just taking the dog to a street I've never walked down before in my town. That's another little thing I do. Just go somewhere new, brand new, and just walk.
Yeah, and also just walking from your house, because I find however much spiritual hygiene I do here, you know, to keep it comfortable to live in, there are times I just need to get out and I will feel totally, everyone must experience this, I will feel totally different and buoyed up when I come home. And I'm just, you know, I'm not walking very far, I'm walking on the golf course. And, you know, I include the golf course, these lands, when I talk about the ancestors and the energies of this land. But somehow it gives you another point of view, doesn't it? Another perspective.
Laura, do you feel the do you feel that the trees remember and recognize you when you go on your walks? Do you have certain trees that when you go near, they make you feel better?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I've got trees that
friends.
I've taken. Yeah, I've got trees that I've taken, you know, had some fruit from and beech nuts. This is going back years. I've been doing things like that, and pieces of their bark in my ancestral shrine and so on. Oh yes, very definitely. And much more recently, because I've been walking a lot locally, obviously, because we're not really meant to be driving, but I mean, we can. But I'm on the edge of 2 golf courses. So I go out and see, as you're saying, the same trees day after day, but they've started to take on real form for me, you know, real sort of faces and that I didn't see before. And I've lived here 16 years and I've not noticed that before, but I guess I'm also walking a very ancient trail over to another village. I'm very fortunate to be able to do that. And yeah, it's just amazing. You must find that too, Matty.
Absolutely. I mean, we're quite restricted here. It's quite a townish area. But I have a park just down the road, and there is a line of trees. You know, trees either side. You just walk through. It's not very big. But I offer tobacco to those trees sometimes. But those trees for 7 years have been where I've walked through at times when I'm trying to clear my mind, or trying to get myself in a perspective, or even just rushing around in the house and have to walk the dog. And every time I walk through that row of trees, and I come back with a fresh perspective every time. And I know it's them, you know, I know it's the trees. It's beautiful. So a walk is not just, you're not just alone, are you? You're in company that you otherwise wouldn't usually be around. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Maybe another thing to just mention here, talking about journeying and stuff, you know, any type of instrument that you like to play can assist you in your journey. I know Sue is big on, you know, Laura and others too, and drumming and stuff like that. That's going to help you to go into a more of a theta stage.
For me, when I walk to the park, it's, oh, sorry.
No, carry on, you're fine.
No, you speak.
No, you know, music and sound is a really big one for me. So it's almost like a permission slip where I can adjust my frequency. So I've got some favorite music, and yeah, sometimes I'm not a musician, but sometimes I do play flute. I've got a Native American flute that I gifted myself with as an honouring, and that really opens up my heart. sometimes I like to play drum. But I've got a few bowls which are just beautiful. One of them just sits in my bedroom. It's crystal, and I only need to ring it once or twice, and I can feel, you know, more clarity, which is beautiful. So yeah, sound is a big one for me. Just gives me that permission to move into a different space, really. And
So these would be the utensils then Andrew was talking about, correct?
Yep.
I did a yoga session the other day, and I think Mary was on, Laura wasn't, and I perceived such intense energy the last couple of days where, you know, my body, I perceive it through the body, so I had to get moving, you know, and yoga is good, and obviously going for a walk is good and stuff, but it was so intense that in Shavasana I had to do some light language, you know, just like whatever that was. And that is a type of ceremony too.
Yes.
So really, you know, what does ceremony mean to you? It can mean anything. It can mean really taking a hot bath, taking a cold shower. So getting away from this mystical thing, what it is, and just really start playing with it.
The light language is such a wonderful tool, and the bath, things even like a bath. The bath for me is, you know, that's one thing that I do is I put light language into the bath. I put salt into it. I put the, you know, the salt from my salt packs. I put prayers into it, you know, and you know, these are mini ceremonies, aren't they? And you can have to do them all day long. Yeah.
Or just sitting down and actually consciously, when you eat your food, be completely in the moment with the food. That's a ceremony too, right?
So I want to add something. So walking versus workout. So when you were in your yoga scenario and started using your light language, you needed to go from normal to workout. You needed a bigger form of transmuting force behind you. And when we take spiritual walks, we're not really doing it to work out, but there are times we need to make our spiritual walks workouts, where we have to make them much more challenging on the physical body for whatever reason, or the spirit body, so we can go through a larger transmutation of something into something else. And this is where heavy lifting ceremonies, big fires, help us transmute some of that data that will never make sense unless you're in that macro state of doing.
Yeah, it's really getting your metabolism going almost, you know, get the sweat coming, you know, and stuff like that. It's really, really important, I think, in intensity stages as we're in at the moment. It's almost like you're making space for the energy that wants to come through and wants to come in, for all your soul shards, parts and avatars, if you wish.
Yeah, I agree with Martin there, because you know me, I used to walk 10 kilometers per day. So imagine that's per month, 300 and something. So now I go out once or twice. We used to now start it twice a week in Bushy Park, which is near to Norman Richmond Park. And what I do is when I enter the park, I'm in that state. I listen to Andrew in one ear, I listen to the birds in the other ear, the equine location. It's very, very dear to my heart. And everything changes. I just become one with the animals, with the trees. It's for me, it's just like, and I miss it. I do it, and after I do Tai Chi, because it actually makes me slower. I'm really fast, so it slows me down. But what Andrew was saying, and Martin, I miss, you know, I mean, I hugged the trees this morning. Was it like, I find this, and Matty, I agree with you. I always go a different way. And look at this guy this morning. I know I'm not supposed to do that, but and if you smell, do you know this flower? I think it's iris. And this reminds me of May. And remember when you talked about the senses, and I thought, I must have it. And I had it, and it's just like, it puts you in the state, like a totally different state. And like yesterday, I went out to the rain, because you have to sense, you know, different, because you locked away. You have to go out, and sense that ritual, I didn't sense that ceremony, and I missed that workout that I used to do every day. It's just like, I know I'm not supposed to go out, but still, it's for me. That's you know, when I start to do that, I'm in such a trance. Same as, you know, and then I come home and you don't stop me after that.
Well, I think it's important to go. It's got to be important for people's mental health, not just for people expanding their consciousness, just to stop some people going stir crazy, and they won't realize it's expanding their consciousness. Can I just, at this moment, Liz, can you hear me? Liz is my client at the moment. So she's a newbie to all this, and she's just found her nice Native American links and all sorts of synchronicities coming in. So can I just ask you, Liz, has this been any help to you today?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, thank you.
And can you see where you are already doing a lot of this?
Yeah, strangely,
you're dancing.
A lot of things I'm going, oh, okay. Yeah. That's coming through. Yeah, so it's really lovely to hear and see and make links. So yes, thank you very much for
That's brilliant. What I'm teaching you is what Andrew has taught me and the group, you know, and my own self-study as well. But most of what I am passing on to you, I've learned from Andrew there. So if you've got anything now, before, I'm not sure how much longer this is going to go on for before we wind up. I'm sure Andrew will be more than happy to answer a question if you've got it, because I won't be able to answer all your questions. You can give it some thought while you're there if you want to.
Liz, do you like to dance?
Yes, I dance a lot. Yeah.
You professionally trained at it?
Yes, yeah.
I knew it. What level of training?
Sorry?
What level of training?
I went to a conservatoire, and I'm still kind of training there as well.
Okay. Is there a particular form you really enjoy doing for yourself?
I actually, I mainly do movement medicine practices now. Okay. So I mainly dance with the elements, and they're called ancestors, and just anything that speaks to me. A lot with animals as well that come up, and yeah, just here's
something I'd like for you to try, because you've already got a sense of the dance. Go and buy 20 or 30 small bells and make a set of dancing pants that you're going to hang the bells on just above the ankles or just below the knees. And what you're going to notice is you can make a very unique dancing, ringing rhythm. This comes right out of the Native American worlds, where they would normally use rattlesnake tails, 20 or 30 or 40 on them around the ankles or their knees. And then understand every footfall is like a drum beat. And you can make staccato notes with your feet, long and whole notes with the rattling of because you can keep your legs shaking when your feet are still to make the bells move. And you can make an orchestra of unique dancing music. You can just get safety pins and just tap them on in the beginning, 3 or 4 bells on one and the other, and you'll realize you'll have enough body control to add so much more to the dancing process for you.
Okay, thank you.
It's a great moving meditation also, especially when you get those bells just singing the way you want them to, because you're in that dancing flow. It's more validation that Spirit's working with you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Andrew. Well, we had our first session, didn't we? And the synchronicity started because you went to the wardrobe where you're staying. And at the very back of the wardrobe, was it a picture of standing there? Sitting bull?
Sitting bull.
sitting bull. And you'd never noticed it before, had you? Never come across it. So we're getting all sorts of things like that happening, which is wonderful. Thanks, Liz. Thanks for your feedback.
Thank you.
Right, guys, has there anybody got anything else they'd like to bring up?
I just have a quick question from Andrew. You know, obviously I learned alchemy somewhere else and myself as well. But you know, Andrew, you have the alchemy in your shop. Is it a course, or are these recordings, or are they just writings? Or
It's video recordings.
Video recordings.
Telling you different forms of alchemical processes and tools that I've learned over the years that work for me.
Okay.
Teaching yards.
Okay.
So I want to add something. We all every morning have to do our constitutional, which is purging stuff out of us. That do it too is a form of journey. Since time immemorial, people have had their greatest inspirations in the bathroom. Why do you think that is?
Because you're getting rid of a load of old shit and emotional shit.
Because your third eye is connecting to your intestinal tract for the morning purge, which gives you a form of clarity that allows spirit to come in and think with you.
Puts a total spin on it, isn't it? Going to the ceremony done today.
Yes, ceremony's done. Exactly. Okay, we've all had the mystical shit where we got up off the toilet and feel 1,000 pounds lighter. All right, bouncing our step. Everyone's had it. You see dogs do it; they're wiping their feet on the ground, moving on. Oh, perfect. Okay? It's a gift.
Who would have thought? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how easy it is.
Yeah. How easy it is. Okay. You know, why do babies laugh at their own farts? They haven't even heard the laugh yet. Okay. You for all the ladies that have had children, you've seen the face. You know what's going on. Okay? Now, as adults who are well versed at that morning duty, what can we learn from it the next time you go?
Becoming the energy of ceremony in every moment of your embodiment.
Mm-hmm. Or?
No, I'm just saying, yeah. And what can you learn?
What else? What else? What else?
What can you learn from it? Well, it depends on the consistency, I suppose. If it's ease, then you know you have a sense of ease.
Well, if it's a hard journey, something's going on in your body. If it's a journey, well, what's going on there?
Martin, actually, you can comment on this because remember you said to me, since you started to come here and eat my food, your shit in your body was totally different. So you said you can feel that.
Well, obviously, it depends what you eat, yeah. And you're absolutely right, because when I do eat healthy, I feel much better, and it is expressed in that too, you know.
Does it tell you something about your third eye as well?
Yes, there's an endorphin release in certain healthy expulsion, as well as a dopamine release. And the goal for the majority of our expulsions is to get to that state where we're creating a dopamine release from a release.
Who needs sex? Thank you. Thank you, Andrew.
You're welcome.
Oh, God.
So your rectum or sphincter is the opposite of your third eye.
Yeah, I heard you say that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're linked. Yeah, they're
What
direct.
is that?
Well, the third eye opens and closes the same thing the rectum does. So the sphincter,
Right. Okay.
same mechanic.
Like the tailbone is connected to the throat.
I know it's a gross type subject, but when you're trying to get into the mechanics of how the body works, it's important to understand some of the more metaphysical side of some of our body parts. Like when you learn massaging, you know, you learn certain technique and points that can really give extreme release. Well, we can get an extreme release every morning.
Yeah.
And give ourselves a full-on dopamine release, even if you're just dropping a little pebble and it splashes on you.
Yeah.
Okay?
And I think what you're just saying now is again a confirmation of what we said early on, is any type of journey is connected to your body. The more you can learn about your body, the easier it will get for you to create your own journeys. You're gonna get the jargon together so that you can actually create your visualizations if you want to write them down and stuff. And even if you look at what Andrew's done with his blood meditation, you know, you work about, you talk about the bone marrow and the blood, and really all the things that we take so for granted or don't even acknowledge, bring those into your awareness and then start working with it.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I'm going to add one more thing. Journeying itself is a choice. There are some choices we make passively. There are some choices we make actively. And there are some choices we make out of, it's just made relevant now. Knowing the difference between a passive choice, an active choice, and then parts of us that suddenly make something relevant now. Those three phases, and there's other phases to talk about too. Knowing the subtleties between those threes will help you determine, is it right to do it now? There are a lot of people who force the ceremony, force it, but they don't have the enthusiastic effort behind it. So if you're doing these passive ceremonies to just clear a space in a room, okay, is that a microvolt you? Is it you actively bringing your joy and passion, macrovolt, or suddenly made something relevant, meaning it can be a combination of both of them?
Absolutely. You know, Andrew, sometimes I've sat down to the fire and you know, it's been a chore sometimes. But I know I've got to do it because of my process. It's a micro. But there are other times when I've wanted to sit at that fire, many times, and I've just looked, I said, you know, I just want to do it. And in those moments, that's when the most beautiful prayer happens. You know, those spontaneous moments when you're in that flow and you really want to do it. And sometimes when I find that I don't want to do a lot of it, maybe that's a sign that I just shouldn't for a couple of days. And then when I go back to it, I have the passion and creativity.
Yes. So knowing those subtleties and activities about yourself. If there's a part of you that's in a lot of resistance, there is a time you have to actively overcome that self-defeating habit pattern. And there are other times it's not the habit pattern, it's just you going, it's not the right space and time for me right now for whatever the soup in your reality is.
And the main thing is not to then go into judgment of the self, but actually just ask the question, you know, is now the time? And it's usually, if it doesn't feel right, if it doesn't feel right, then it's not the time to do it. And having that trust and having that understanding of yourself to actually be in allowance of that.
Yeah. Any other nuggets for us, Andrew?
Nope, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, well, we've covered a lot today, guys.
Yeah, I just want to say one thing, and I think also, Andrew, I think you mentioned that, or I don't know where I heard it. It's like infinity is only limited through how much you allow yourself to create.
Yep.
And we are compulsive creators, every single one of us. There's almost, even if you just sit still, you're still creating on some level. You know, that's this interesting thing about creation. And based on a journey, everything we be and do is a journey anyhow. So don't beat yourself up by thinking, that's what I did in the beginning, thinking, I don't get it, I can't do that. You are already doing it. You're going on a journey daily when you go to sleep. You're going on a journey daily when you wake up. This is all a journey. And why are we doing this? I just want to say, actually, why are we doing journeys? is to start creating outside and beyond what we have created until now. That infinite, we're all infinite dimensional creators. And this is for us to practice, to start perceiving and receiving and creating and being outside of the limitations that we have been functioning in until now.
It's just that when you do it in awareness or knowingness, I think you then open up more choices for yourself.
Choice, question, choice, possibilities, contribution.
Sometimes the difference between the mundane and the mystical can be as simple as choice.
That's right.
Yeah.
It all comes down to choice. You are a conscious being of choice and awareness.
Exactly.
And awareness of your choices and choices of your awareness.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you don't like one choice, well, you choose another one. And if you don't like it, you choose again and again and again.
Just don't allow your self-defeating habit patterns to make choices for you, and you'll learn what the subconscious impulses are.
Say this again.
Don't allow your self-defeating habit patterns to make choices for you, and that's determining how the subconscious affects you.
Yes, okay.
Is that like run by the parasympathetic?
Usually stuff trapped in the vagus nerve.
Right.
Yeah.
Old habit patterns that just are nags that won't go away.
Which again, vagus nerve, you mentioned it twice now. Learn about, get some information about the vagus nerve, because it is a most amazing connection to the mystical.
It's where all your mystical skills are embedded in.
Exactly. Now, how do we start with that? Well, where is the vagus nerve? You know, it runs from here all the way down, blah, 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 the whole thing. Google it and then take it from there. Start working, create your own journey, or use one of the journeys that we've created already for exactly that purpose. Combine the physical and then it will lead you into the mystical automatically.
Here's a metaphor. The vagus nerve is the on-ramp to the superhighway of consciousness. And there are many truck ramps. Ever seen those truck ramps when you're going down a hill and the trucks can go off and into the ramp and stop themselves? Those are the different organs that we have, because there's a stop in each organ, or a truck stop in each organ in the vagus nerve that has all sorts of things there to observe or to load into your truck and move to somewhere else. It's your spiritual logistics system too.
Yeah. I've got one more question on this one, actually, going away from the vagus, looking at the hypothalamus. Mm-hmm. I've been reading that in these days of you know, raising our consciousness and stuff, the hypothalamus is starting to secrete certain secretions, which is almost like a psychedelic substance that will help us to go more mystical, more multidimensional. Is that correct?
It's the same stuff in ayahuasca.
Exactly. So, you know, but exactly. So, but apparently we are starting those secretions, we can induce that ourselves without having to take any substance.
The dopamine release creates the environment and where we're creating that mystical experience or secretion for the mystical experience.
Okay, so just take a good shit then. That's it.
That's a mechanic way for it. But on that journey of spirituality, where we've mastered learning how to give ourselves true dopamine releases, the next level is understanding like the active medicines and ayahuasca. Okay, they're the ayahuasca plant and the thing that allows us to process the actual chemical that's giving you the spirit molecule. We naturally produce it, and we can give ourselves intense self doses out of choice through the understanding of the ritual habit pattern of joy.
So this is a big point here, you know, because we in this hemisphere don't get ayahuasca that easily, you know. So if we can start producing it ourselves, that type of secretion, then how does it get better than that?
I am on it, Martina. My next
Good. Okay, done.
DMT is the active ingredient that gives you that super consciousness access. And the science has proven over and over and over and over again, we produce it naturally in small amounts, and then when we are in pure euphoria, we can produce it in huge volumes that can go on for weeks at a time.
Yeah. So that's a good add-on to our journey, you know.
So
And
Andrew, oh, sorry.
No,
I was going to say, Andrew, when you use, because I've had psychedelic visuals with cannabis, is that accessing our own dimethyltryptamine, or is it a separate process?
It can be separate. It can be both at the same time. And then there can be other factors inside it. Like if you take cannabis in the edible form,
yeah,
it's far more journey than the smokable form.
Yeah. And with alcohol as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's our own internal dimethyltryptamine, but I'm just trying to get the mechanics of it, Andrew, if you see what I mean. So, because I've always wondered, is it always dimethyltryptamine that produces that effect, or are there multiple different kinds of molecules that produce that effect?
Like you could have an acetylcholine release. It's the same thing, pleasure center, that cocaine gives you.
Yeah.
Which creates an extending joy that is this percolating joy that's around you that may, a day or two later, if the joy sticks around, has a huge DMT release to give you superior dreams.
Yes.
Okay? So there's a variety of triggers that are in it from the various body secretions that we have that give us that state in which we can do something as conscious beings of choice.
Understood.
Is there any nutritional support that we can take from our hypothalamus to help it along during these times then?
Honestly, it's really going to come down to exercise, joy. There are always things you can eat, but if your intestinal tract can't process it, it's pointless. Like I tell people all the time, how many morning pills do you take? And I get people tell me I take like 15 pills every day. And I'm like, every pill you take, and a dietary supplement pill, is full of a binder that holds it so that that pill stay good for 3, 4, or 5 years. And if you're taking any more than 3 pills in a day, you're not processing virtually anything from that dietary supplement. You're just crapping it out, literally. Okay? So you have to understand getting the intestinal tract into order so it can naturally digest the varieties of foods. And then that will ultimately determine what you should be consuming and then what dietary supplements your body can break down and actually use. Like here's the percentage. Like for every pill you take, you're probably only getting 2 to 3% of what's actually in the pill because of the binder. And that binder is there so it has a shelf life of 2, 3, 4, or 5 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just wondered if it was a herb or something.
The biggest myth about the dietary industry that you got to take it every day. It's a giant lie. It's a giant lie. That's why the naturopath's pills that don't have binders in them actually work. They don't have binders in them.
Mm.
And then there are times, even when you're on the naturopath's pills, you're not absorbing any of it because the microorganisms aren't there to absorb it or break it down properly. And then you might have a clogged liver. That's why most people who take dietary supplements have clogged livers, and then we go to do a liver detox, they're full of liver pellets.
Mm. Well, nothing's going to beat natural source, is it?
Nope. All right, anybody else?
We've run out of questions for Andrew.
I'm already planning this ayahuasca thing.
You cook some ayahuasca soup,
I
please.
will put it at your doorstep, but 4 a.m. I will be there.
If you're still up for a question, I do have one. Moving on from the hypothalamus to the thymus gland. And I do remember, you know, it's the big, again, apparently it disappears around 2025, and then and then you said it goes into the lymphatic system, correct? Good. Now, I've now heard that it comes back and starts creating immunity again as we're going through changes in the awakening. What do you think about that?
So the thymus is known as the high heart. So the thymus is the membrane around the heart when the heart's first formed, which allows the lymphatic system to grow and then the body to grow around it. So before you have arms and legs, you're just a heart that creates a tongue that then creates the thymus, which is the bag that's around the heart, and the very different things grow in and around and out of it. Now the thymus is actually what's known as a one and done gland, and it's there for you to go through puberty. And it's what finishes the rest of your IAM's contracts to come in and be finalized of this is what you got to resolve. That's what puberty is about. It releases about 300 different hormones during that time, and then it is just absorbed into the rest of the developing lymphatic system, which is indelibly linked into your fascia. You can say that the fascia system, which is all over the body, and the lymphatic system are one system, but we don't see it as that. Then you're talking when you're going through your menopause. In reality, it is your fascia and your lymphatic system that is the overall high heart all throughout your body, which is still linked through the central nervous system and the vagus nerve and the sympathetic nerves into the body, mind, and spirit, which makes the complex being.
That is fascinating.
Yeah.
So how is that linked to immunity? Because obviously the thymus gland is connected to immunity, right?
Not always. People who have had traumatic breaks, it's completely disconnected.
So Andrew, that's very, very interesting that you talk about the fascia like that, because I've never thought to ever ponder that, because in my own healing, I've done a lot of physical training, bodybuilding and things like that. And it didn't really come together until I started doing yoga, hatha yoga, but very slow, deep stretches, and finding the points of resistance in my own body and stretching them out until they were gone. And it had such a massive healing effect on me. I've almost felt a lot younger, and I do appear a lot younger than my peers, you know. And I never put the two and two together, that it may have some, you know, much higher function, because the fascia is literally the whole body, isn't it? Like a web across the whole body.
That holds electrical charge. And that's where the majority of traumatic experiences are stored as electrical charge. And then after a while, they seep into the sympathetic, the parasympathetic, and the vagus nerve. And sometimes your fascia system, let's say you've got a bind up here and a bind up here, but it actually means something's wrong with your tailbone. Exactly. And that's how fascia is going to reorganize all this data that's supposed to be in your crown chakra, in the scalp, the file tree, and the fascia will move it all around. And that's why we can't remember our past.
But it's also why craniosacral therapy is so important. And Liz, this brings a whole new meaning to our anatomy and craniosacral therapy revision we do every day, doesn't it? Absolutely. When you hear it from this angle. We've been talking about the fascia recently, and the wonderful work that craniosacral can do in releasing all that stored up tension or whatever emotional stuff stored in the fascia.
It's you can count it as electrical charge. And there have been many research on people doing myofascial release, and they can actually measure the electrical discharge from one fascia system into the other.
Wow.
Now, there are people that have plantar fasciitis. You guys familiar with that?
Yeah.
That's from extreme amounts of electrical energy being stored in the heel or going in and out of the heel at an uncontrolled rate.
I had that when I was younger.
Yeah. That's like lightning bolts moving up and down the body through the heel, and it's creating an electrically damaged fascia and muscular system there, and central nervous system.
So that's why you get so many emotional releases when you do body work.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Wood crystals. I know craniosacral therapy is a natural, a good one for that, for that. But what about crystals in the shoe again? Or would that only aggravate it?
No, it'll help release it, but there's a chronic issue of lightning bolt of superior energy moving through the body, which has created the plantar fasciitis. And you have to go at the source of why suddenly 20 trillion volts are moving through you uncontrollably or up out of the ground into you.
Right.
A bigger healing journey when one is working with plantar fasciitis.
Whole new perspective.
Thank you.
Also, just chime in here that Andrew, you recorded I can't remember who, it wasn't Sean Stone, but somebody else, I think it was 2018 December, and you talk about the craniosacral therapy, and I remember I walked about 25 kilometers or miles, and this is what I do, I just energetically put it into my blood and bone marrow. But if anybody is interested and don't know, maybe Liz, I'd recommend you to listen to that recording. I can't remember who did you record it with, but it was really, really good. And I remember listening to it over and over and over, and it just went into my blood. But you talk about that, you really well explain that subject. So if somebody wants to look it up, it's on YouTube somewhere. 2018 December, if I remember correctly.
Thanks, Andrea. Okay, guys, anything else we want to pursue with Andrew? Are we all done? Everyone tired and hungry?
Everyone's cooked.
Everyone's cooked, yeah.
Everyone's chocolate souffle is ready
Yeah,
to come.
I was just going to say that.
How have you guys been feeling with all these energies coming in? You feel the intensity?
Oh, yeah.
The last 24 hours have been really dense, really like galactic energy. It's crazy, like living in a soup.
I'll use this metaphor. The global narrative is about to have a big pimple on its face that it's got to choose to pop or put antibiotic on.
Oh.
Okay.
Good. You want to say more to that or not?
No.
I meant to ask you, Andrew, what's going on? It's very hush hush. It's like very like something is gonna.
Not about hush hush. It's about vanity, that there's a pimple, and not to pop it. What happens when you pop a pimple? It makes it worse. Versus knowing the right thing to do is put a little antibiotic on and it'll go away without you touching it. Therefore, it doesn't reinfect itself over and over again. That's the metaphor that the world has right now. Don't pop the pimple.
Don't pop the pimple. Okay, cool.
Andrew, is this something to do with the fact that they're trying to relax the quarantines now to get the economy running again?
It's going to be a disaster for them trying to relax the quarantine.
It is, isn't it? I can see it coming. Yeah.
But they haven't told you the truth about the virus itself. And there's a whole bunch of people who are now being regular AMA doctors who are going, the science doesn't add up.
Yeah.
And they're banning them off of all of the channels.
Yeah.
The same thing with the vaccine that they're trying to get everyone to force to take. The science doesn't add up to what we learned in your science classes.
Yeah, there's a lot of scientists actually coming out at in addition to all the conspiracy theorists, and actually, you know, start looking at, and also the figures don't add up either.
They don't add up. And again, it's because they're not telling us something about the sickness itself. Why are people just suddenly dying of, young kids suddenly dying of strokes and heart attacks from this virus?
Yeah, I read that over here. Suddenly,
Is this an awareness? They don't know. I'm getting that they actually don't know yet. Or do they know and try to hide it at this stage?
What's worse, they know or don't know?
That they know. That would be worse for me. That they know and trying to hide it. I think it's ignorance at
Let's
this
take a
stage.
poll of everyone. What's worse, if they know about what it is or they don't know?
That they know.
If they know, yeah, in my opinion.
For me, it's they don't know. It's worse.
I was gonna, yeah.
Ah, why?
Because why don't they know?
Why don't they know? What is stopping them from knowing?
Yeah.
And if you guys heard any coronavirus conversation, this is something that is a multidimensional sickness that is following the karmic line, the karmic vehicles of retribution right now. So it doesn't follow normal virology rules.
Yeah. Which explains to me, that makes sense to me in the context of they don't know. Because this is not finished yet.
Right.
If we would know now and know what to do with it, this would be a half-wasted exercise.
I
Nothing
guess some of us just take comfort in them not knowing.
So it's nothing is wasted. Look at all the benefits that have come with people not going to work.
Oh yeah.
They literally had to weigh what would happen if people were at their home for a month by themselves. Well, they guessed wrong. They guessed wrong.
Yeah, because people are actually starting to enjoy it.
Right.
Yeah.
They don't want to go back to work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
60% of the Zooms have stopped.
Mm-hmm.
The Zoom has gone down 60%, apparently. Somebody's telling me, which is an indication that people are getting quite happy to just sit back and actually relax into it.
Which is the perfect time for some of those non-interfering races to suddenly go, at some point I have to accept non-interference as a choice, and I'm faced with a choice right now.
Have the rules changed, Andrew?
They're changing all the time.
Yeah.
Whose rules?
So,
Whose rules?
Well, just the non-interference rules. You know, are there any kind of rules that are stopping that kind of interference? I know they have their own morality, some of these beings, but you know, will it flatten the souffle, or are we done with that now? Is it time that, you know, things can actually progress and happen?
So seventh density beings don't all agree with the same way to unity. And that's why there's been non-interference going on for the long time, because there wasn't a unitarian concept of what to do. So non-interference was the right choice for them at that multi-million year perception they were going through. Well, now a whole different set of choices are here, which include non-interference as a repetition of karma.
So would this be why the Pentagon's released those photos of so-called aliens or the UFOs recently?
There's more to that than we know. Have any of you guys watched the History Channel special Skinwalker Ranch? I would highly suggest, there's 5 episodes now. I would highly suggest you go and watch it, because there's absolute 100 proof of the normal in that show. The last episode, 5 scientists all witnessed a UFO on videotape. I also witnessed a variety of other things. Skinwalker Ranch is this place where the very first of the cattle mutilations happened. Doctors and scientists were on field when the shit happened right in front of them. It's been researched by a variety of aerospace industries. It'll be very worthwhile for you guys to rent those episodes, because this is a setup for something.
Okay.
It is a setup for validation, proof, awakening, whatever you want to call it. It's a setup.
I give permission.
It's on Sky at the moment.
I ran across it just completely by accident. I knew what it was from before, but I'm like, History Channel? What? And I watched one episode. I'm like, what are you guys doing here? There's a soup in your presentation that is not in anything else.
Mm.
No, the reason when I said Andrew hush hush that in the UK, like everybody's just, it's almost like they went back to normal. I'm not saying the government, but the people, like, okay, whatever. We're reopening the garden centers now. We're reopening the other shops, B&Q, and
It's
okay, it's normal. Okay, we're going back to normal.
But
But
that's herd following herd mentality. Okay. It's going to be a disaster. The reopening of the economy is going to be a complete and total disaster.
Like how Massey says, history has ended.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Andrew, with regards to ships, I've noticed that there is like a stream of ships that's quite often in the sky at the moment. Are these ships or are they satellites? Because there's some people on the internet seem to think that these are satellites, and I've seen ships around them.
If you look up something called Starlink satellites in the sky, you'll be able to instantly tell the difference. So Starlink is the tens of thousands of satellites that Tesla's trying to put in the sky that's going to make a global internet system for everyone for free. Now, I've seen Starlink, and you can tell what it is right away. If you've never seen Starlink before, you're like, what the fuck is that? Okay?
Yeah.
But just look it up, and you'll instantly be able to tell the difference.
Okay, cool.
Dave's not here, but he just had a UFO experience yesterday and yesterday night, and it wasn't Starlink, but it was something not exactly similar, but the way it was set up and the position it was moving in the sky.
Right.
All you got to know is your spatial awareness when you see something. Is it going north to south, east to west, northeast to southwest, and is it relative to her horizon line? And then you'll be able to tell if it's Starlink or not.
Right, yeah, because this one that I'm seeing, it changes night after night. It changes its direction.
Okay, that's not Starlink.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Linda, I didn't know you were on. Have you just come on?
No, I've been on and off.
Okay.
I followed it all the way through, but I took you to the kitchen while I cooked.
Oh, Andrew would like that. Have you got anything at all you'd like to ask him while he's here?
Well, I wondered about the fascia that he was talking about, and whether if you've got a problem with your fascia in that it's you get a pain syndrome with it. I suffered for years with burning feet, and they're getting worse, and I wondered if it could, from what he was saying, whether it could be linked to the fascia.
When you say burning feet, is it super hot to the touch, or is it a feeling?
It's hot. They go bright red, and the only relief is to get up and stand on a cold floor that then seems to drive the heat away.
How long's that been happening for?
3 years, 3.5 years. Wakes me up every night, and it started to get more in the day now as well.
Are you going through menopause?
Oh no, that ship sailed a long time ago.
How long ago?
Oh, I'm 67.
So when did menopause really begin for you?
Oh, probably, I didn't even really notice that. Probably in my mid-50s.
Did you get hot flashes in your mid-50s?
No.
So you're probably actually still going through a form of menopause. And there's a part of your womanhood that's still trying to force a menstrual cycle. Which is inner work to do. But because the feet are getting red hot, you are actually having what's called pathogenic warmth. It's a traditional Chinese medicine term that's stagnating in the feet. And as soon as you said you have to step on a cold floor, what that meaning is you have all of this hot, passionate energy that has to go somewhere, or it's going to begin to create major issues in your body, like swollen feet that become arthritic.
Ah, that explains a few things too, yeah.
You have a stored up, pent up energy that has to move. And when it sinks down into the feet, it's telling you that, hey, get up and do something, literally, to get rid of it.
So I need to be more active.
In your creativity, in your flow, and you got to figure out how to get lightning bolts of energy out of you in a moment's notice that isn't rage and anger.
Oh, no.
When you were younger, did you have moments of rage and anger that would come through you? Or done to you, rage and anger done to you?
I guess like any child may, yeah. Yeah, to a point, but not I don't feel it was excessive. I get major angry now.
Major angry.
But it comes and goes, and then I laugh at it.
Okay. Why do you laugh?
Because I can see the stupidity in it.
So laughter is also a denial response of what the energy actually is, and then puts it back in the body into stored instead of it releasing and getting out.
Okay.
Yeah. So
thank you.
The anger followed by laughter is a mechanic of that hot pathogenic energy not actually getting out of you. You have these bursts of anger to get shit out, but you laugh it off and bring it right back in.
Right.
Instead of acknowledging, yes, I'm angry. Yes, I'm pissed. Let me get to the root of it.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. You should also go to a traditional Chinese person and have acupuncture and cupping and moxibustion done.
I do have acupuncturing with moxa, and I find it very helpful.
And tell the person about your red, sweaty, red hot feet on a regular
basis. Yeah, she doesn't know what to do about those particularly. They don't get really hot, but they get very swollen and red, and inside they're hot.
So what it is she actually has to see it happen.
Oh.
To understand it. That's a situation. That's why when you're on a really cyclical basis of having acupuncture done, rage and anger goes right to the liver. Okay?
Right.
So have her work on the liver meridians.
Okay.
And would a creative outlet help as well, Andrew? Or?
Yeah, she needs creative outlets.
Right. I think Martina said I need to start doing something. Pottery.
You got to do something. You got to get it out of you. Otherwise, it's going to start backfiring on the body.
Yeah, I think that's happening already. So thank you for that. But I was feeling that anyway, that I needed to find that way out.
You can come walking with me, Linda.
Yes. Thank you very much, Andrew. Appreciate that.
Welcome. All right, everyone. I got to get going. I've got a session at the top of the hour that I got to get ready for. But this has been really spectacular and fun to be with all of you.
Thanks, Andrew. You're a diamond.
Thank you very much for coming on and joining us. And thank you all, Consciousness Explorers. We'll be meeting the same time next week, 5 p.m. GMT on a Wednesday. And also we have a website, nouveauearth.com, where you can find the recording, but myself, Martina, will also post it out on Facebook and social media for you. So I really appreciate all of you sharing and coming along today.
Love you guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Laura.
Cheers, guys.
Martina, if you need my recording, just give me a message.
Yeah, okay, I will. I should be okay. But if I shout, yeah?
All right, thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye,
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.